Hello, lovelies. This is the genesis story of my rather peculiar way of working that melds stagecraft and law of attraction and glamour magic and house care. Why? Because your outsides are a reflection of your insides, and your insides can be influenced by your outsides. Let me Let me tell you when I realized this for real. So I had been on stage for 25 years. Yes, I knew the power of the set, of the wardrobe, of the way a character could deepen, how you can inhabit a character so much more easily when your surroundings reflect that character. It's practically impossible to play Lady Macbeth if you are on the set of Oklahoma, for example. When we moved to the States from South Africa in 1998, we had never actually owned a home. We were living in the home my husband was born in, a gorgeous, stately home in South Africa. And moving to the States, it became possible to own a home of our own. And that one happened. It was a gorgeous little split level in Minnesota. I was thrilled. Just the most wonderful place to raise my kids. Fast forward 9 years, and the eldest child is away at college. The youngest is struggling at school. My husband is having to drive 16 miles in Minnesota weather. That's 16 miles each way to commute. And I was getting steadily more and more unhappy with the winters. I am a tropical blossom. I was never meant to be cold, says she, who now lives in Minnesota again. Anyway, at that time, I was working at Barnes& Noble. That itself is another long story. I got myself into some major debt. I had to go work in retail, ended up at Barnes& Noble, because who doesn't want to spend their days surrounded by books and coffee? That's when, in 2005, The Secret came out, the book and the video. Now, before you poo-poo the book as a vanilla mainstream version of the law of attraction, yes, it is woefully incomplete. However, it was a portal for me to realize that I actually could be the director of my own damn life. I could be the leading lady and the director, and I didn't have to settle for what I had. I read the book daily. I watched the movie as often as I could. I even got the audio and listened to it in my car as I was driving backwards and forwards from work. And I finally took full ownership of my life. I made a list of what I really wanted. In that moment, what I really wanted was a 2-story, beautifully gracious home in a warm climate. I wanted my son to be thriving in his last couple of years at school. I was even happy to homeschool him if that made it possible. And I wanted my husband to be happy at work and not having to commute quite as far. I also preferred not to have to be working in retail. I would like to have money coming in from something else. I didn't quite know what that would be just then, but I had given network marketing a try, and I knew it wasn't that, but I knew it was possible, and I wanted that possibility for me. I also wanted the house to sell at the kind of money that would allow me to buy this gracious home in my warm climate, and I wanted it to be smooth and easy. I didn't want any fuss. So here's what I did. I knew after 25 years on stage that if you were going to act as if, you damn well better have the set that will support you, the design, the staging, right? So I started to create the surroundings of someone who was moving to a warmer climate. That was my identity. That was the role that I was crafting. Someone who is moving to a warmer climate. What that looked like then was I started collecting boxes from work and I started packing. Not everything, just the things that I really would want to take with me. The things I decided that I didn't want to take with me, I was carting down to Goodwill. I staged the house with so much care and deep appreciation for what it had given us in the 9 years that we'd lived there. And I kept envisioning how happy the new buyers would be to have this home for themselves. I had two huge murals on bedroom walls, and I refused to take them down because that didn't align with the smooth and easy vibe that I was going for. Every time I saw the for sale sign outside my property, I would visualize that sold plastered right across it, and I would feel the anticipation of that. We all started to talk about how fabulous it was going to be warm in March, to be warm in April, and not have to wait for snow to melt. And I started setting aside the clothes that I wouldn't take with me. Yes, I still needed them because it was winter in Minnesota, but I knew I wasn't keeping them. Every time I went out to shovel the driveway, I actually took a minute to appreciate the snow. It really is lovely when you don't have to deal with it. I would just stand and look at the beauty and think, I'm not going to miss this at all. We even pretend booked one-way tickets to Atlanta. We chose Atlanta because it was warm and we had friends living there, and they had the kind of architecture that I was looking for. Just for fun, we chose the date of June 16th. We would pretend book, have a look at the fares, see where we would sit on the plane, and basically act as if. I told everyone at work that I wouldn't be there much longer. Whenever somebody would complain about the weather, I would say, oh, I'm so glad I won't have to deal with this next year. My son even was excited to be reprieved from school, thrilled to be able to do his final year in his own time without having to try and fit into the one-size-fits-all craziness that is traditional schooling. My husband's situation was a little different. He did try and had tried many times to be able to work remote as a software engineer. That should have been a possibility, but his boss wouldn't let him. So he was looking at jobs down in Atlanta, had found a few that he would be interested in applying for. Everything was moving as if. And here's how it all shook out. We sold the house in 6 days to the second person who walked in the door, and to that person who said, I love the murals. I would buy the house for the murals. And we moved on June 16th, a closing date chosen by the seller. What was even more exciting was when my husband went into his office and told his boss that we had sold the house and we were moving to Georgia. He said, I don't want you to leave. Would you work remote? Our friends in Atlanta offered us their spare rooms for as long as we needed while we looked for another house. And we eventually found my dream home for exactly the same price as we sold the Minnesota one for. We moved down easily, smoothly, and it was everything that I was hoping for. This is the power of the set design part of acting as if. Because every time I saw a box in my house, I remembered that I was a person who was moving. Every time I had to pack something, it was telling me that I was moving somewhere warm. So many times we try to change something, but we only use one half of the equation. We either focus on the insides, the mantras, decisions, the thought stuff, right? Or we focus on the outsides. We do the decluttering. We follow Marie Kondo. We get an organizer in. We do all that stuff. But it doesn't stick because the other side is missing. When you do the thinking work, your surroundings are still saying, yeah, but this is who you are now. And when you're doing the changing in your surroundings, if your identity doesn't change, you're just going to slide right back, and everything that you decluttered will come screaming back, if not more. But here's the best gift of this grand manifesting bit of evidence for you. I worked out a methodology. I worked out how exactly to do this. In the beginning, I used to call this nesting because it is creating an environment to welcome in a new being, the same way as a pregnant woman would, right? You're shifting your surroundings to welcome in your future self. But nesting isn't quite it. It wasn't until I started really amplifying my glamour and tapping into glamour magic that I realized that this was the piece that was missing in my nesting teachings. Glamour magic is about directing the eye. Glamour magic living is about creating surroundings that you see that throw a glamour on yourself, that create an environment in which you can become with so much more ease and so much more smoothly the version of you that you've always known you actually are. It is thrilling to me to walk a client through the physical evidence of the changes that she desires. She wants to feel peaceful at home. How do we anchor that in your environment? I want to be able to speak my truth. How do we make an environment that shows you that? I want to be a world traveler. I want to be slender and strong. I want to be rich. How do we create an environment that says those things to you so that your brain will believe that you are them? That is how glamour magic works. This is the evidence that I have seen over and over and over again. When you see change as an inside and an outside enterprise, it cannot help but work. I have honed and mastered being able to walk you through the transformation, turning your home into the kind of manifesting tool it's always been. This is Glamour Magic Living, and I hope you'll join us. Details will be below. It's $23 for 23 days, and who knows who you might be or how you might be when we're done.